In the previous video, I gave a brief introduction into general user management in Zabbix. Now let's take a look at an example how to assign user permissions properly. Let's create a user account that can only see the status of the web servers we configured. Go back to Administration Users. First, we need to create a user group so we can assign access permissions to it. I click on Create User Group and call it Web Servers Read Only. I don't assign any users yet. I will leave front-end access to the default. This relates to the authentication mechanism like internal or LDAP. If we used LDAP, then system default would mean LDAP, and I could explicitly configure this group to authenticate against the internal database. Or I could set it to disabled to deny access to the web frontend altogether. Now I switch to the Permissions tab that shows two different sections. At the top, I can configure the permissions, and at the bottom, Zabbix will show me how that affects access to the hosts and host groups. The three columns are Read-Write, which means that the user can both see the status as well as configure these hosts. Read-Only means that the user can only view the status of these hosts. And Deny explicitly denies access to host groups that may be members of another larger host group. We want read-only access to the web servers, so I add Web Servers to the Read-Only section. In the lower section, you see that this means read-only access to the servers Web 1, Web 2 and Web 3 for all users of this group. Now I save this group. Now we have to create a user that becomes a member of that new host group. I switch to Users in the top right corner and create a new user. I enter the name and password, and now I can assign the new group. When I switch to the Permissions tab, you see the actual access permissions of this user again. And I save this new user. Let's try out the new user account. I click on Log Out and log in again as the new user. As I created the user as a Zabbix user and not a Zabbix admin, I don't see the Configuration tab at the top anymore, so he can't change anything. And when I click on Overview, I just see the three web servers, so this user has the access permissions we intended. Keep in mind that this user will also only get alerts for web servers. Users won't get alerts for systems they don't have access to. That concludes this video about user management. You saw how permissions are assigned to a user group and connected to host groups. And you saw how to create groups and users to give them the permissions that you intend.